How's it going? How's everyone today?
Very good.
Yeah, so my name's Nick, Nick Darlington. I'm a writer by trade, content creator, quite active on Twitter, and also the founder of Bitcoin Friendly SA, which is basically a platform. I like to call it a platform. I think it's more of a inclusive word that helps South Africans spend and accept Bitcoin with confidence. And so in essence, it's part directory. So if you run a business that accepts Bitcoin, you can list your business on the platform. And then I think what's quite close to my heart is writing about the content in the space. I've been covering quite a lot of it over the last year, from payment guides like how to pay specifically at bootlegger to the scan to pay merchants. So yeah, the content engine is there's not really anyone really covering the spending aspect of it in South Africa. And so that's kind of my focus. But before I dive in, I just want to get the show of hands. Besides buying your tickets, who here has spent Bitcoin before? Who here has made more than 5 transactions? More than 10?
Probably.
Okay, well, anyway, regardless of your answers, hopefully by the end of this talk, you'll be spending more Bitcoin, because I think that's, yeah, we'll get into that. Okay, so this is kind of my journey from digital gold to real world money. So I launched Bitcoin Friendly SA last year in May. And my main goal was to sort of track the merchants that are accepting it in South Africa, and then also write content around it. So specifically, like I mentioned, the guys like how people pay specific merchants, how merchants themselves can accept their Bitcoin, and through kind of getting involved in the space, researching, documenting the merchants, speaking to industry players like Money Badger, that's really engulfed by what's happening, tracking how the payment space is evolving. I kind of went through the shift from seeing Bitcoin mainly as a store of value to being a store of value and a medium of exchange. And so this talk really shares my lessons that I learned along the way. And at the end, we'll explore a few ideas of how we can actually grow adoption in South Africa. Okay, so I think it's important to ground everything before we move ahead. And yes, you can absolutely pay with Bitcoin in South Africa. Obviously, for people who came into the space early, you know that you can pay Lightning to Lightning. At scale, in South Africa, payments are largely made possible through Money Badger partnering with traditional payment providers. So when we say Money Badger, they're basically like a payment gateway for Bitcoin. And when we talk about traditional payment providers, we're talking about guys like Scan to Pay. So when you go to Engine and want to pay with Scan to Pay, they'll give you a QR code. So it's that QR code payment system. So Money Badger as part of them, it effectively unlocked payments across South Africa, like hundreds of thousands of stores. So Scan to Pay has like 700,000 stores, Zappa has like 30,000. And this means you can buy fuel at Engine, you can buy medicine and clicks, you can do shopping at Pick and Pay, buy coffee at bootlegger, like the options are really endless. And how it works is Money Badger, for those who don't know, is basically a bridge between traditional payment rails and Bitcoin payment rails. So ordinarily, if you're scanning a regular Bitcoin, let's call it a Bitcoin Lightning invoice, just a Bitcoin QR code. If you're ordinarily scanning a Lightning wallet, you don't need a bridge, right? Because it's Bitcoin to Bitcoin. But with the regular QR codes that are in South Africa, a Lightning wallet can't scan that, and so Money Badger just converts that code into a format the Lightning wallet can read. And that's essentially how it works, and that is why we're able to pay at scale. And I guess because South Africa has been, you got Zappa, you got SnapScan, I think we're in a unique advantage to actually get mass adoption when it comes to Bitcoin. So how does this actually work in practice? So it's quite simple. Like you open the Money Badger app, you scan the QR code. Like even the parking tickets in Portswood, you can scan that with the Money Badger app and pay with Bitcoin. So for those of you who haven't done it, give it a shot. And then you just complete the payments in your linked Lightning wallet. So any Lightning wallet, right? This can be Layers, it can be Blink. But lots of these tools like Blink, Blitz, and Layers actually have this technology built in already. So you don't need a separate app. So you can literally just scan them directly, and you'll be able to scan, I'd say, about 90% of the codes. I typically prefer to use the Money Badger app because it's the most reliable payment flow. So if it doesn't work for whatever reason, you can just fall back into money badger. Okay, so we got 2 videos. I just want to show you in practice for those who haven't seen it. So Luva paying with Bitcoin at Zapper Store. Let me get that one up if possible. It's essentially what I've explained by opening the app. Did you click the? Because we tested it earlier and it worked. No. Did you click the top right? Remember that thing in the top right to open in the new tab? Literally great. Just give me a sec, guys. Always have a free demo. Yeah, so if you go there and you click on that, are you in the presentation we did earlier? Yeah. The one that was in, because remember earlier it was in the slide. Resume slideshow. Okay, I think we're just going to leave the videos. But it's fine. It's the same payment flow. Basically, any QR code you got to scan it with the money manager thing, it opens the money manager app. It opens up your Lightning wallet, you complete payments in your Lightning wallet. So it's that principle. I just wanted to show you that obviously technical difficulties. Okay, so I think the important part for me is what did spending Bitcoin and documenting Bitcoin payments teach me about Bitcoin payments, specifically in South Africa. And I think this is actually applicable to Bitcoin as a whole. So firstly, Bitcoin is a store of value and a medium of exchange. And so I used to see Bitcoin as digital gold mainly. And so in 2017, I got involved. I bought some, I kept it. I didn't trade it. My whole point of it was to keep it for the long term. I know that's for some people remains, that's what they do, right? They hold it because it retains value well. But since building Bitcoin Friendly SA, I was kind of forced to ask the question, what is money? I came across the Bitcoin Standard book, I read it. And if you know what money is, it's basically 3 things in theory. It's a medium of exchange, so you can pay for it, goods and services. It's a store of value, like gold, it retains its value over time. And it's a unit of account, so things can be priced in it, right? You could argue that Bitcoin doesn't really meet the unit of account that well because of the volatility, but in theory it does. And so once I began to realize, cool, yeah, Bitcoin meets that criteria, I kind of explored, okay, I got into the thought process of thinking about hard money. And so for me, the 2 keys that make Bitcoin superior money, and I'm going to try and explain this without being too technical, is just scarcity and decentralization. So those were the 2 aspects that stood out for me. Like, I'm a coin collector, so for me, like, a rare coin is valuable and scarce. So I think of Bitcoin in the same way. It's a scarce thing. There's only 21 million of them. It's scarce by design, which means as long as there's a high demand for it, over time the value should increase, right? And then decentralization. So it's run by a computer network. If you look at the current monetary system, monetary policy is controlled by the Reserve Bank. So that's in essence a single point of failure. But Bitcoin doesn't have that. There's no one who can change the rules, right? So that 21 million hard cap it cannot be changed. And I think once I clicked and saw that, I couldn't really unsee it. It's money, it's better money. So I kind of went from experimenting with payments to like spending it a lot more. And that might sound counterintuitive, but because why would you want to spend something that's digital gold? But my whole thesis and the way I think about it is the 2 can coexist, and they should coexist as long as you can separate that in your mind and reduce the emotional cost of spending, which I'll come to shortly. Okay, so then the second thing I learned is at the till, we're still quite early, right? Very early. I think in Bitcoin circles, we often overestimate adoption because we're all talking about Bitcoin, we're excited about it, share it with our friends. But when you look at the numbers, you realize the payments aren't that widespread. So this comes from Money Badger directly. I read a tweet, that was the fact I said it got viral. It was about 10K views on Twitter, but he responded, I think it was Coral, on this. Basically said, this was in October last year. We're currently doing 1.5 million rand a month in Bitcoin and non-Bitcoin transactions, right? Scan to pay processes that amount every hour, and Pick and Pay does twice that amount every hour. I spoke to Coral yesterday at the cocktail evening. He said those numbers are around 1.7, right? So when you look at it in that perspective, I think the spending narrative at least is actually just like we are literally, it's happening as we speak. So I think we've had the store of value narrative, and I think that will change. That'll stay, but the spending narrative is actually going to start running now. But yeah, there is also growth, and I think obviously Pick and Pay is the biggest one. So of that 1.7 million, Pick and Pay probably has the majority of the spend, about 70 or 80%. Which I think, regardless of what where adoption is, I think every payment you make is an opportunity for education, whether it's as simple as letting people know you can pay with Bitcoin. At least that creates awareness. So, and then this one's closely. This lesson I learned is closely tied to closely tied to the previous point. And the idea of invisible Bitcoin payments don't drive adoption. So what do I mean by visible payments? So because you can scan a QR code with a Bitcoin wallet, you can technically just ask the people that say, hey, can you give me the QR code? You don't have to mention the word Bitcoin, you can just scan it, right? I experienced this at Fred Oak. Well, I want to share a story with you about my experience at using Fred Oak. So I went there to pay with Bitcoin. I said, can I pay with Bitcoin? The guy was a bit confused. He spoke to his colleagues, like, yeah, you can pay. So completed the payments, and he was like, oh, you're the first person to pay here. And I was like, well, that's not true because I had been here before. But I realized that for him it probably was his first payment. And so payments are still infrequent. So I went ahead and shared that story in a sector group. And the guy also responded. These are Bitcoin groups part of it. He said, oh, no, that's also nonsense. I went there yesterday. I said, oh, did you say you can pay with Bitcoin? He said, no, I just scanned the QR code and left. I'm like, well, obviously, how's he going to know you paid with Bitcoin? Like, lots of these merchants still also settle in rands. So not all of them are, so most of them probably not settling in Bitcoin. So I think this was then creates the perception of zero demand, right? So if merchants then perceive zero demand, like why should they even care about this thing? So I think something as simple as literally saying, hey, can I pay with Bitcoin? Creating that visibility around it is part of changing the narrative. And this for me was probably the biggest one, and I think this is still a big one, is people are reluctant to spend in Bitcoin. Okay, and so I've identified 4 key areas. I'm sure there's others that you can identify. So the biggest reason I'd say is the digital gold and HODL culture narrative. So why would you spend an asset that you can store value in and pass it down? It's like generate. Why would you spend it, right? Logically, your brain is telling you that it's the dumbest thing. Then you've got the HODL culture, which, for those who don't know, HODL means hold on for dear life. It originates from a 2013 meme where the guy misspelled the word holding, wrote hodling, and he was just referencing how he doesn't trade his Bitcoin, he holds it. I think those two narratives are closely linked. And when you have a culture that says you never sell your Bitcoin, you're stupid to sell your Bitcoin, you're going to end up like the pizza guy who's 10,000 Bitcoins, but you see how people don't spend it. Then you've also got the short-term volatility. So you saw yesterday, I don't know what the price is now. It's probably like 1.3 million. I don't know. I think it dropped 10%. So if I bought 10,000 rands worth of Bitcoin yesterday, today that Bitcoin would be worth 9,000, right? So obviously long-term would appreciate, but short-term, if you're thinking like that, especially if you think we're in a bear market, and the price is going to keep going down, you're not going to spend your Bitcoin, right? But at least convert it from rands. And then also complicated tax returns. So Bitcoin is currently classified as a financial asset, which means you either pay capital gains tax on it if you're holding it and selling it. So you hold it long term, you sell it, pay capital gains or capital loss on it. If you're trading it, you're a trader and you might sell it frequently, you pay income tax on it. But yeah, so invariably, by law, if you are spending, you need to declare each and every transaction, right? If you're using it by law, that's actually how. But I'll get to why I think the framework obviously needs to be updated, which kind of brings me on to the next point, how to drive adoption. So I think this is by no means the only points. I think there are many other ways to drive adoption. You've got the circular economies, you've got Bitcoin meetups, you've got events like this that drive adoption, each play their own unique role. So these are my ideas based on my experience on the ground. I think you need to make it easy for people to get Bitcoin and fund their Lightning wallets. I think that's one of the big ones. That's one of the biggest questions I got on the ground is, because I often onboard people, and they say, oh, how do I get more Bitcoin if you don't know about Bitcoin? I think maybe Lightning wallets need to have integrations. I believe Layers has this now. I saw it's there. You can literally in the app just buy more Bitcoin directly. Yeah. Making it visible in store, as simple as, like I said, saying, can I pay with Bitcoin? That's visibility. Merchants actually putting up Bitcoin accepted signs. I mean, Bootlegger, I think, has missed a massive opportunity. I know the guys have met with Bootlegger, Money Badger, and encouraged them to put up Bitcoin accepted signs, but they haven't done it right. So basic things like that make a massive difference. Also making it visible online. You can list on platforms like mine. You can get content written for platforms like Point Telegraph. And the checkout. Yeah, Checkout International. So Checkout International they use Peach payments. And then you can pay using the partnership between Peach Payments, which is the payment provider, and Money Badger, you can pay with Bitcoin. Here you can see clearly they have the Bitcoin preferred or Bitcoin accepted sign, so you know that you can pay with Bitcoin. And then also helping businesses actually lean in. So what I mean by that, I don't mean make Bitcoin your identity. So some people, companies like, I mean, you've obviously heard of Steak and Shake in the States. They embrace Bitcoin. They have like a Bitcoin themed menu. Just showing them how to actually market, right? So putting those signs up, writing PR messages, writing social media posts where you target wallet holders, incentivizing spending by giving discounts. Like I know at the Wiggle Room, you can get 20% off if you pay with Bitcoin.
Maybe even more.
Yeah. But I still think that the biggest thing is this emotional cost of spending. Like people want that all this stuff doesn't matter if people don't want to do it anyway. So how do you reduce the emotional cost of spending, right? I think firstly we need to recognize that it's not all or nothing. You don't only have to store your value, you don't only spend it. It is money, which means you can spend and save Bitcoin, right? If you make that separation in your mind, so like I have my hardware wallet where I store it long term, and my spending wallet, which is like my Layers wallet, whatever that. So if it drops by 10%, I'm prepared for that, and psychologically I'm like, cool, whatever, it's my spending wallet. Likewise, works both ways, right? The drops also increases, so yeah. And then also spend and replace is another. It's what people talk about a lot. Whenever you spend it, try and replace that amount of Bitcoin as quick as possible. And then I think this is more of a nudge to like tax policy. And maybe the people who are high up in the space see a Money Badger that, I mean, I'm sure they're speaking to the guys, but if Bitcoin is being used as money, it's not, I'm not holding it long term, but I'm using it as spending, right? You should in theory, when you spend your rands, you don't have to declare each and every transaction, right? Because it's money. So if I'm spending my Bitcoin, why in theory should I declare it? So I think the tax framework should catch up. I know in Australia, it is treated as an untaxed personal use asset against spend. So you can actually spend it and it will not be taxed. So if the policy updates to reflect that, reduce the complicated tax returns, people wouldn't feel friction in actually wanting to spend Bitcoin, and I think it would actually help drive adoption. And then also, I think this is just the final one. Like, so I'm sure lots of Bitcoiners do this too. You end up speaking with people, and you orange people, but this was in response to a post the guy was basically saying that Bitcoin needs like a cultural moment, and you're not going to educate people by talking to them about technical things. And you mentioned earlier, like hash functions, like no one even cares. Like I've done some reading on hash functions, and I have a basic understanding. Generally, no one cares. And so I think a good starting point is to show how Bitcoin works by just getting them to download a wallet, sending them some Bitcoin, showing them how to pay. And I mean, I had this experience at Engine, and look, not everyone will be curious, so you've got to pick your battles. But this guy was genuinely curious, and so we had a conversation about it, and I was trying to explain to him what it is. And in essence, how I explain it, I think it's in a good way for South Africans, is to explain it as chummy to chummy cash. So it's friends to friend money, peer-to-peer money. And so, in that moment, we had quite a cool conversation. We came back later, I had to go to a meeting, and I got him to download the wallet, and I sent him some Bitcoin. So I think adoption happens in those moments with your family, your friends. And And then, I think this is kind of the essence of it, and I want to leave you with this. Is I'm sure many of you already know this, but Bitcoin is money, and what that means is that you can spend it and you can save it. The mean of exchange and store of value narratives are not mutually exclusive. They can and should coexist. But I would encourage you, like, if you think it is money, in practice it is money, right? But if you're not going to spend it, then it remains a theoretical thing. And if we want us to succeed, I would argue that spending it needs to be part of the puzzle. Anyway, that's kind of what I learned.
Lessons and learnings. It's anybody have a question for Nick? We've got a couple of minutes, but this is the time to step out, go to the next talk, that kind of thing. Yes, sir.
What's happening with snaps?
Nothing. So Snaps going through a period where they accepted Bitcoin. Snaps is owned by Standard Bank, so I'm assuming they disabled it because they're a bank. But it's been disabled. I don't know what's happening. You can't scan Snap scan code as an investor. I could for reperiod. We could for reperiod.
There was another question at the back there.
I recognize your face. John. You speaking next.
Okay. Just this idea that I thought your list of ways of driving Bitcoin adoption was very good.
Yeah.
I think also one is just whenever you pay anywhere, just ask people and say, like, do you take Bitcoin? Do you take Bitcoin? Do you take Bitcoin? And there's lots of us in the country, and every single time you mention this, like, the idea gets drilled into your head.
100%. And that's how the whole thing. You can do it without saying Bitcoin. I guess that's the problem. You just got to be more aware of it because that drives awareness. 100%.
In your experience, you're talking to merchants who accept Bitcoin. Do you know what do they generally do? They keep the Bitcoin as treasury and don't change, or they change it immediately.
You talking about the businesses?
The merchants, yes.
Yeah. So I know Butters, Pizza, they settle. Most merchants right now, I think, most merchants don't. They settle in rands. I'd say. So probably 90% of them. I stand to be correct to that. But
I want to see the integrations.
Money ledger and so on. So this is the thing. So I've been to Clicks because Clicks accepts Bitcoin via scanning to pay. But so if you go into a store, often the integrations happen without the staff being informed. So you walk in and can I pay with Bitcoin? And they'll be like, no, you can't. I've had to get back and forth with support. So this is where we're at. It's kind of like a merging of two worlds. Money ledger has made this possible, but I think for this adoption to grow, it needs to merge like that. I don't think you're going to fiat and all this whole existing monetary system is not going to disappear. So I think, it's an important way to actually bring the two worlds together.
It's a we're in a strange time right now because if I go to One Piece, for Shell, NJ, where I refuel and so on, I use scan to pay. So as a Bitcoiner, I can live Bitcoin standard my side. I don't even need the merchant to be fully cognizant of what's going on. I don't even need to spend the time to even orange pull the attendant who's assisting with the matter going on. All they need to be able to do is give me a QR code. And interestingly enough, this is becoming quite the norm. Like integrating a QR code payment into all of our point of sale is common, right? And it's a very short leap from having a QR payment that cannot settle Bitcoin and one that does. And that's essentially what guys like Zapper have done and Moneybag and Corridor, is they're helping these people do that. And that's how you switch something on the point of sale. So as this grows, people will naturally then get to a point where they say, wait a minute. I'm spending Bitcoin, but we can also just take it directly. So
you can decide, like, you can take Bitcoin or you can decide on a split. You can do 50% fiat. So if the business has immediate cash needs and they want to store maybe the Bitcoin, whatever, they store a portion of it, and then the other 60% they use. And in an ideal world, you have a circular economy where everyone's spending it, and it doesn't matter.
It's complex because of taxes as well, especially your taxes and your liquidity.
The tax framework, if I'm spending as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to declare that.
If you're a business and you accept Bitcoin and give it in your treasury, it must be very complicated.
There's a lot of interesting things. There's a lot of nuance in tax that your typical small business doesn't understand. But currently in South Africa, there's no reason you can't put Bitcoin on your balance sheet as a business.
You compare it to EU and US, starting with taxation.
Well, you see the talk this morning, they want to start mining Bitcoin here with the Eskom wants to mine Bitcoin.
Market spreads overall in the US, but they actually have to make that decision to accept Bitcoin also work.
Yeah. No, that's why I was curious, like, on what they were doing, because there are other concerns for small business, but
The thing is, I mean, you saw the numbers, most people don't think it.
yeah, for them, it's just another way of.
Yeah, so I think like in the next 5 to 10 years, this could potentially could either nothing happens or it could take off. I think it's going to take off. Yeah, which is what I think.
Thanks, Nick.